Welcome to an exploration of sight and mind, a travel through the world of films and the artists that bring you these masterpieces. Do you love films, directors, actors, cinematographers, editors, composers, or any of the hundreds of artists that bring you these feats of art? I am Luis Lacau, your host into the world of films, your guide to Manbitesretro. What have you done? Thousands of years of building and rebuilding, creating and recreating, so you can let it crumble to dust. A million years of sensitive men dying for their dreams. For what? So you can swim and dance and play. That is one of my most, I guess you could say it's the line that was most iconic for me in this amazing movie that I have an awesome co-host that brought this movie into retrospective for us this week. My name is Luis Lacau, and I have, again, like I said, an amazing guest with us this week, Sherri Alfonso. Just butchered your name.
It's totally okay. You're probably the first person to butcher it that bad, but that's fine.
It was a stutter moment. I was like, oh, crap. I just forgot what the name was. Oh, that's great. Great podcasting, right?
Yep. Quality entertainment right here.
But Sherri, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're at currently in your career.
So my name is Sherri Alfonso. I recently graduated from Ithaca College with a BA in Theater Studies. My focus in general career things is to retell classic stories through new modern lenses, showing how humanity is constantly repeating itself and people really never change. It's just different situations and different people. I love using languages and seeing how languages connect people over the course of just societies in general. And right now I am living in New York and trying to kickstart that directing career.
That's awesome. That's awesome. New York is definitely the place to be for theater. It's the mecca for it. That's for sure. But no, and that kind of fits in perfectly with the movie that we're talking about this week.
Really?
And we're going to be talking about The Time Machine, not the shitty one that was remade in the 2000s. This is the 1960 classic that is, I think, in my opinion, one of the most iconic pieces of classic literature turned into film.
Yep.
I definitely think that you agree with me on that one. It's just incredible how Rod Taylor, obviously, Alan Young, and just a whole cast of classic, well-trained theater actors, actually most of these are, and they portray these characters with such depth that I think it's fascinating, and we don't see that in cinema now. We don't see this kind of depth of character built without having this massive amount of exposition given.
Oh, absolutely. Like, what I loved about this movie personally is it really does focus on this one man and his journey, but how people just are, like how humanity is going forward. And the narration just clearly portrays this really deep message that everybody can relate to and everybody can just really think about in a way that really isn't the standard like aliens invading Earth type of sci-fi movie.
Which ironically HG wrote as well.
Like it's different.
But no, I agree with you 100%. Like just the anti-war message that comes out in this film about his just complete lack of comprehension of why we keep going into war after war after war, and his face of disgust every time he stops and realizes, oh my God, this is incredible, the achievements, and we're at war.
We're going to destroy it all.
And I think that's HG's message across the board is that, yeah, we have these we could take these beautiful messages of technology and building our culture by industry and all this stuff, but we also have to look at the humanistic side. And that side is the most important side. We can't just us ourselves becomes machine of war, because that's going to create all these kind of problems that we see in this film.
Yeah. it's interesting because war is, as we've seen in our own history as humanity, as a species, no matter how much good we think we're doing, how much we're advancing, how much technology we have, we just keep destroying it. As much as we advance to have like cell phones and computers and internet and all of this, we're building more and more aggressive weapons to destroy what we're spending so much time, energy, and effort creating.
Agreed. And I think this approach in this film it's done in a way that's subtle. It's not hitting you over the head with a message. It's not like
It's
nowadays.
not political in any way. It just is showing you the information flat out.
Exactly. And his facial expressions express what we as a society should be feeling when we're encountering these type of situations.
He's ashamed to be a human.
Exactly.
These people who are in many ways just like him, they're probably not bad people. They're just caught up in a situation where they were given the orders to drop a bomb. They were told to do this, and if they don't, then something's going to happen to them in return. And he's just ashamed to be a part of a species that is so destructive and so violent.
And that's why he looks to the future, because he wants to get away from society that's like that. And he thinks that we're going to be able to progress as humanity and learn from our errors. And he says it in such a very it's such subtlety in his words, and his eyes, I think, portray the loss of hope for humanity by the time he gets to the end. And I think that's important, because that transcends everything. That transcends all of our political beliefs, our religious beliefs, everything. This is just a man's eyes and looking in retrospect to humanity and the possible outcomes of the future and everything. And let me tell you, H.G. Wells got it pretty damn spot on, I think. Like, he got it pretty close. I think it's interesting how much humanity hasn't changed. Because this author from the 1800s freaking was able to capture us still in our modern society.
Yeah. I mean, like, even if you go back as far as something like Shakespeare, we perform Shakespeare's works constantly. Like, you see Shakespeare festivals all over the country, and it's because those texts, those writings, those stories, those people are still relevant. We hear all of these stories, we try to learn these lessons, but we don't learn anything, and we keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again.
I agree, and I think that's where it goes.
It's fascinating.
I know, seriously, and that's where I wish more people would watch this film, because this is honestly, I think. All right, so I think humanity needs to see more films like this, because first of all, it gives us that look back on our society from the 1800s, where we're seeing this author write about the problems with society, and the fact that we haven't fixed those problems yet after 100 plus years is horrible, because we have the ability to change these things. We have the ability to change ourselves from being a warmongering country and world to someone that could live in unity and peace. But that peace also has to be natural.
People don't want to change. So one of the greatest lessons I learned in school, I studied at Fordham University for a while, and while I was there, the shooting at Pulse in Orlando happened. And my professor was talking to us, and we were discussing how, like, characters perceive the world. So, like, as an actor, you need to know how your character perceives everything and what motivates actions. People don't do anything destructive or harmful because they know it's going to be destructive and or harmful. There is always some sort of positive motivation. There's a positive reason for everything. Like, we may see the opposition as a bad guy, they'll see us as a bad guy, because everybody wants to believe that they are right and their actions are justified by what they believe. And because nobody is on the same page, like, there's just going to be that constant back and forth, and no one's going to give up believing that they are right. Everybody wants to be on top. They want to be ahead of the game. They want whatever their beliefs are to be the mass belief system or political thought, whatever it may be. And because people just can't agree on that, we're just going to keep fighting and arguing over it, causing wars. And it'll repeat over and over and over again until we're all destroyed.
Pretty much. And I think there's a wonderful movie that, again, it's another very underrated film, Dogma, that Kevin Smith puts a couple of lines of just complete inspiration in his films. And in this case is, why do we have a belief system? Why don't we just make it an idea? Because an idea we could discuss civilly. We could discuss it in a peaceful manner and kind of modify our ideas to each other. We find that middle ground by talking about the ideas. A belief structure is exactly that. It's a structure. It's very hard to tear down. It's very hard to modify. It's very hard to change in any way or form. Why should we limit ourselves to a belief when we could just have an idea? Because nobody for sure knows with any certainty what's out there, what all these conflicts that we are doing are for ideas. They're not for beliefs, because a belief is rooted in something that's solid, something that's 100% provable. It's not a theory anymore. It's not anything like that. All we have are theories. So theories technically would equal out to ideas. If we have ideas, then we could change them. We could modify them. We could discuss them in a civil manner. But people don't look at it like that. They're solid ground, like you said. And that's the problem, I think.
People have too big of egos.
Yeah. And this film has that one line where the kid says, but we have to go to safety. He keeps repeating the same line over and over again to the main character, because that's what he is embedded in his head that he has to do.
Yeah. Like I heard
to change that. It's awesome.
That's an interesting, the siren in this movie. So the siren is used for the bomb shelter earlier on, and everyone's like, we have to go underground, there's going to be a bomb, we're all going to be destroyed. Automatic response, a bit more panicked, but it's just there. Once you hear the siren, you go underground. Then later on in this dystopian society, that same siren is used again, and it makes the Eloy people almost zombified, because it's such an automatic response. It's just so instant, like from the day they are born. Once they hear that siren, they know they have to go underground. And it's almost like a hypnosis type thing. It's like a weird mind game. Like they have nothing else to live for but waiting for this siren to go.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly what we were talking about that root in belief. They have this belief that they have to do this.
Yeah.
They have to do this. It's embedded in their mind. It's embedded in the society that they're raised in, that they have to do this. And when they're trying,
don't think that it's really a belief. They don't believe they have to do anything. They just do it because that's all they know. I feel
isn't that a belief?
There's no alternative. They can't really believe in this.
Well, if you're raised a certain way, there's a fascinating documentary called The AltRight. It's this Muslim woman that goes to these alt-right groups, right? And she goes and has these civil conversations with them about, why do you believe this? Why do you believe in Nazi propaganda and restarting Nazi propaganda? And honestly, most of the responses are because they didn't know anything else. They were raised in these ideas and in these beliefs, quote unquote. And that's kind of the same thing as this society in the future. It's pretty much the same thing. They were just raised with this belief already. It's instant. It's part of their society. It's part of their culture. It's the same thing that we have with our culture, that we know that we have freedom of speech, quote unquote. We're able to have these things. And it's kind of from the moment we're children, we're already well aware of this fact.
You learn what your parents teach you, whether
Exactly.
that be religion, politics, and technically, like, you can have like the teenage rebellion where you do the exact opposite. And some people go out and explore. They may convert religions, but you just learn what your parents say. You learn that to be truth, and then eventually you start preaching that yourself.
Yep. And I think we see a lot of that here. But there's other ways to teach people. There's a whole movement now in our society that is kind of allowing children to make up their own mind.
Mm-hmm.
My parents, they raised me like that. They raised me with they gave me every side of it. They told me, don't just read the Bible, read the Quran, read the what do you call it, scriptures of Buddha and all that stuff. Everything. They told me to read everything. Like, take all full sides of it and make your own opinion. They wouldn't give me an opinion. So with that kind of mindset, it kind of allows me to find that middle ground between different ideas that are given, and also to change my mind. Like, I've changed my mind so many times in my beliefs because I'm still evolving. I'm still learning. I'm still able to progress. And that's what humanity needs to do, though. They need to have that progression. And this film is very blatantly obvious that it's a very dark outlook on society, that maybe we aren't able and capable of doing this as a a culture, as a society, as a whole. Which is very depressing.
Hey, you lovely nerds! This is Joe coming to you from Diversely Geek. Diversely Geek is a global nonprofit that promotes self-acceptance by highlighting the positive messages of fandom. We're all fans of something that has affected us for the better. We like to express that love by embracing our inner geeks with you all on our podcast, Diversely Geek Discusses. We also have a podcast for any Whovians out there called Doctor Who in Review. We often partner with Manbitesmedia, so you're bound to come across us sooner or later. You can find us on all podcast platforms as Diversely Geek Discusses, and on all social media platforms as Diversely Geek. You can also subscribe on our website, diverselygeek.org. Live long and may the Force be with you.
Hello, movie nerds. This is Luis Lacau.
This is William Phoenix.
And I'm your host, Brandon Lacau. Do you search for hours on Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, and Shudder? Always looking for the next show to binge or movie to watch? Before you binge, take a bite with Manbitesfilm.
I love the theme that people don't change. We may think we are, like, subtle little things, like obviously people now are very different than people back in like the 1600s. If you take somebody from then and bring them now, they'll probably just freak out, and who knows what would happen. Same thing would happen if you take a person from now and push them back then. But once you find that common ground, that common humanity, which the character George does by the end of this movie, like at first he's like very like, what the hell is wrong with you people? How can you not do anything? How does your society work like this? But he has that faith that people are going to be the same. Like, they're still people. They still have feelings. They still have the capability for compassion, to fight for what's right. And when, by the end of the movie, when he goes back and tries to restart the society, you can't help but wonder, is the future going to be the same as it was? Is it just going to keep on repeating over and over and over again? Because he may have a more positive outlook on what humanity is capable of, but one positive person won't necessarily change how all of those other people in the society interpret the information he's giving them.
Yep, that's very true. And also it's going to create conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's going to believe the same way. So that kind of leads back again to the same thing.
Yeah. Is the society going to be divided again?
Yeah. And think about it like this. So this futuristic society, yes, they kind of embrace the same techniques of being oblivious to certain things and just kind of allowing things to happen, which is that okay in society? Is that okay to do? Because obviously that they found a way to live a life peacefully. Yes, it's granted you only live to a certain age because then you're taken down and eaten. But I mean, there's two extremes. But how about the middle?
Adult society is you're living for violence.
Yeah.
Just in this world, your violent time, your death is scheduled. Whereas
it's very true.
The start, you don't know. You don't know when you're going to be destroyed by a bomb. You don't know when you're going to be shot. By the end, like in the future, like, yeah, sure, you can live a peaceful life till you're, maybe 30? Maybe? And then you're going to die in a horrific way and be a victim of cannibalism. It's like,
yeah,
same thing. Like, it's different, clearly, but fundamentally it's still the same thing. You just are living for death. You are living for that violence.
Yeah. And I find it fascinating also when he goes back into the past and he does show up to the table and starts retelling the story, how his friends react the exact same way that the future society reacts. They're just kind of like, I don't believe you. This is not correct. This is not right. Except one person.
Yeah.
But both times.
He's a bit skeptical because all of the other people in his friend group, they probably still don't even believe that he went to the future. They think it's just some story. And then one friend just happens to think, maybe this is true. Just maybe. And that spark of imagination and wonder, like, of is it true or is it not, is enough to at least keep the house. It's enough to keep George's legacy alive for at least a short while before the whole place is destroyed. And then when you think about it, because he went back and told his friends all of this, and then went back to the future, he is planning on when he goes back to the future, it'll be exactly how he left it. So him going back and telling this story, theoretically, like, we don't know if the future he goes to, again, is the exact same as how he left it. But if it is, that means everything that he learned, everything he tried to pass on, the knowledge that could have prevented the whole society being destroyed, it didn't do anything.
It was useless. Yep.
Yeah. He went through all of that, came back, and tried to spread the word for nothing.
But isn't that how we feel sometimes?
It is. But feelings versus, like, legitimate information, like, this is what is, especially him, like, he knows this is exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. But, I mean, everybody that believes something, or, again, it goes back to that belief, it's set in stone for them. Mm-hmm. If they're talking and talking these points and saying, oh my God, this is our future, they're saying it with certainty, with the utmost certainty, the same way that George said when he was talking with his friends. So is there any difference between the fact that he actually knows the future for real, or the people that think they know the future because that's what they feel, that's what they believe?
There's a difference for George. There's not a difference for the people he's talking to.
Exactly. And the people that he's talking to are the ones that are going to live on in the past. So it has the same results. It's the same thing, that the same reason we don't all believe in Jesus Christ as a prophet. We all don't believe in Muhammad as a prophet. We don't believe Buddha as a prophet. But if you think about it, they're all talking about the same thing. About living with one and everybody as a society, living in peace with everybody and acceptance. Yet we all
can live in peace.
Exactly. And we all think that we're right when the message is the same.
Like, everyone prays to their own God. Good for you. Great. Awesome. You do you.
Yeah.
But listen to what your God is telling you.
Yeah.
Just be a good person. Like,
and if you think
it's
about
not
it,
that hard.
that's what society is. It's putting rules and regulations and controlling people. But how about if we don't need to be controlled? What if there's putting that limitation, putting those controls and restraints on us is what causes people to act violently.
Mm-hmm.
Because they can't look at the sexual deviancy that is very persistent here in the United States, and specifically the United States. Granted, there is everywhere, but in the United States, it's become an epidemic. And why is that? Because we look at sex as kind of this oh, you can't talk about it. It's this taboo subject. Why is that? It shouldn't be a taboo subject. You have to talk about it to learn about it and progress. If you don't talk about it, then it's going to be the stuff that's hidden behind doors, and you never learn from it and never know how to do it appropriately.
Like, I understand parents not talking to their kids about leather daddies. Awesome. Yeah. I get that. Yeah. You probably shouldn't. But sex as a general topic, like, without sex, we wouldn't exist.
Exactly.
It's simple as that. Like, it is a fundamental part of life. It's an urge that people have. So it should be talked about openly, or else it's going to be taken out of control, and then people aren't going to know what to do with it.
Exactly. And that's when we get these violent acts and these psychopaths, because they lose their way. They lose their way of being able to cope with things because they don't know how to handle things. Exactly.
Like, even like as far as like what we were talking about earlier with parents teaching their kids what's right and what's wrong, and you learn to believe that is true. If you are told to believe that, and that's what you know is truth, but you internally believe in something else, that conflict is just going to eat away at you.
Yep. It's very true. And this is all just coming from one movie, that all these concepts, this movie that's overlooked by so many people because it's kind of this science fiction story that they're like, oh, it's just about a time machine.
Sci-fi. It's really not. Like, yes, sci-fi as like a general theme of like science fiction, like time machine, time travel, that is science fiction, quite literally.
Yeah.
And granted, there are evil blue monsters by the end of it. Like, I was watching this with a friend of mine, and I had to tell him halfway through, I'm like, just so you know, this is 1960s sci-fi. He's like, yeah, duh, I get it. The blue monsters come out, and he's like, oh, now I know what you mean. But it's not like that typical, like, War of the Worlds type thing with alien invasions and things that are so quite literally out of this world. Like, this is a story about what happens right here on Earth. But for him, in the exact same place that is his home, just in a different time.
Yep.
It's interesting. I love this movie. I love it so much.
Exactly. I do too. And it's a very hopeful movie because, again, why would he go back if he doesn't think that he could change things?
Mm-hmm. It's like, towards the middle of it, even just like once he meets the Eloi people, it is very pessimistic. Like, George starts losing his temper. He is like so angry at this is what humanity has become, like all of the bloodshed, all of the people building and rebuilding just for this. But then by the end of it, like, he realizes, okay, this is what's going on. This isn't just some happy society where people do nothing all day. Like, there's actually some dark stuff that happens with the whole cannibalism thing. Like, you can't go out at night because of fear for your life. But again, by the end of it, once that quote-unquote bad force is taken away, there is a hope. Like, he's always... Inventors tend to be like that. They're always striving for better. Like, how can I make this better? How can I do better? And even just with him inventing the time machine itself, he wants to see what the future is like. He wants to see what he can learn to bring back to his own time and try to better society. He's a very optimistic character.
Exactly. I agree 100%. And I think that's how we should all have those inklings of hope for society. Because if not, if you lose hope for society completely, then you're just going to live a miserable existence.
Oh, yeah.
What's the point of that? What's the point in that? Like, you have to have yes, we get trampled on a million times, we get pushed down so much in our everyday life, but you have to pop back up from that and learn from the mistakes and the experiences that you had.
Mm-hmm.
Because if not, then we're just going to end up repeating history.
Again. And again.
And again. And I think that's the takeaway from this, at least for me, is that we have to stop repeating history. We have to break the cycle and have conversations like he had with his friends.
Exactly. But I wish, like, definitely that was my major takeaway as well, watching this for the whatever number of times. We have to break that cycle. We can't let the same things happen over and over again. But I wish there was an answer of how we do that. So we can say we need to break the cycle as many times as we want to, but without a how we can do that, it's just going to keep on going as if you said nothing. Yeah. And George doesn't stay in his time. He doesn't try to fix things. He doesn't try to stay and see what he can do in his own time. He goes like 900,000 years into the future and tries to save what may happen after that.
Yeah.
He tries to break the cycle 900,000 years too late.
I mean, but also it's a fresh start. It's a fresh society that has no rules, no regulations, nothing. Yeah. So it's a fresh mold that he could create for himself.
He is starting with people who quite literally don't know anything. They know that maybe like 10 talking rings told them. That's the only information they have.
Exactly. And so maybe that's the moral of this movie, is that maybe we need to be like that. We need to be moldable, even as adults, to learn from society and learn from everything that's going on. Like, my beliefs or my ideas, sorry, I just fell into that trap. My ideas that I had when I was 18 to when I'm 33 now, it's completely different. And I've learned from my mistakes, and I've learned from other people's mistakes. And I honestly think that we all need to have that. And some people don't learn from their mistakes. They continue perpetuating the same thing, the same acts of violence, the same cycle of violence, the same cycle of everything that's going on in our society. And that's why we're at where we at. But maybe this is that era that we need to change things. We're finally hitting that age of Aquarius era where we could spark a new change in mentality of everybody. If you believe in astrological, which I do. If you look at it, it's kind of convincing. It's very fascinating stuff, and it all has to do with the stars and the moon, and how the moon interacts with us. And we all know when it's a full moon, people get crazy. Yep. So we all know that it has an impact on us. So by being positioned by certain stars and certain moons and our moon, then there is going to be an impact on us. So maybe this is that time where we can make those changes, because we started seeing it already. People are standing up. People are getting angry. Finally.
We're mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore.
Yeah. And the changes are happening, but also, like every freaking great novel out there, it's darkest before the storm.
Yeah.
And it's once that storm passes, though, that's when we're going to start seeing the changes happen. And yeah, it's going to be a problem for the beginning, but just like this story tells us, there's a lot of trouble, a lot of dark times. But then when we finally come out on the other side, maybe it's going to be a little bit better. Maybe it is a paradise.
Just might be. Hopefully you don't get eaten by cannibals, but maybe it'll be a paradise.
Or at least hopefully we have somebody that can stand up for us and fight the cannibals, right?
A whole one person to fight off an entire society. What a great idea.
So there's a funny line at the end of the movie, and I wanted to wrap up with this because I think it's such a great way to wrap up. If there were 3 books that you could take with you, because there's 3 books that George takes with him into the future, what 3 objects would you take with you?
Oh, 3 objects now?
Because 3 books is kind of obsolete at this point, because you could fit them all into a Kindle, and that's kind of, pointless.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So 3 objects that you would take with you.
3 objects. Well, it can't be anything like electric, because your batteries are going to run out. Unless you bring like a solar panel with you.
Well, that could be one of the objects.
Okay, yeah, solar panel, a satellite, and a cell phone. That's what we got. 3 things right there, and you have the whole internet.
That's true. I would probably say I would take a Kindle with me and a camera.
Why a camera?
Because what other way is there to document what you experience? By having a camera, you're able to kind of encapsulate everything that you want about this moment in history.
So you're saying you can't draw?
I can't draw worth a damn. Worth a damn. Like, stick figures are hard for me, so no. That's out of the question.
Yeah, he'll need a camera.
So yeah, that, and probably a thick book that I could write things on, like a journal, a large journal that I could write.
All right.
Because right there, that's the human experience. You have writing, you have visual, and you have culture.
Yeah.
All in one shot.
No, I'd say that's pretty good.
Because cell phones, I don't know if it would actually work with a satellite. We don't know.
I mean, you never know. I'm not that technologically advanced, but I feel like if you have the right equipment, it could totally work.
Or at least you can give the idea to society in the future if you need it.
Yes. Well, if you have something like the internet, as harmful as it is, we have our issues with the internet, it is such a miraculous hub of information. There's so much learning you can do, with just a laptop and a Wi-Fi connection. It's insane.
Oh, yeah. And anywhere in the world, you could jump on. As long as you have a Wi-Fi connection, you could continue learning, and you could teach others.
Exactly. We just watch a lot of cat videos.
It depends on how you use it, right?
Exactly. There's pros and cons to everything,
Yeah, exactly. Like all these YouTube stars, right?
Yeah. If I had paper in the future, I'd probably just make a bunch of paper airplanes. I'd be useless. There's no documentations.
But that's awesome, Sherri. I really appreciate you joining us for this episode. Any final thoughts that you wanted to share with the listeners and all that stuff about this movie?
Watch The Time Machine. Watch classic movies. Learn from the lessons that they're trying to teach us, and don't watch the reboots.
I agree with that message 100%. I agree 100%. Honestly, we do have to learn from the past, and a lot of these movies, they take a different approach to the way that they give that message than we are able to perceive in modern society. Even shows like Doctor Who, the classic Who era, it's very fascinating, some of the issues that they bring up, and I think sci-fi is kind of our outlet for the culture that we want our society to be. It's the hopefulness. So I definitely, yes, you have to check out The Time Machine from 1960.
Yep.
We want to make sure we underline that 1960 Time Machine, because that remake was atrocious and horrible.
Yep. But it's just me being snobby, and also me speaking the truth.
No, it's 100% the truth. That the whole message is lost in the remake. It's literally lost in the remake. So yeah, it's completely obliterated. And the message that you get from the 1960s to the remake is so different. So very different. And it's not just straight retelling either. That's the problem. But thank you again for being on the show. And if you want to check out more content that we do every week, please go on to manbitesfilm.com, and they'll have a link to all 3 different podcasts that we do and our sister company that we work with, Diversely Geek, that you'll be able to check out all their podcasts and YouTube shows that we do with them as well. So again, thank you so much. My name is Luis.
And I'm Sherri Alfonso.
And we'll see you guys next week for another episode of Manbitesretro.
As the songs of awakening rang through, the world was created. The silence was broken.
Middle-earth, with its rolling hills, broken mountains, flowing rivers, and beautiful forest, was created.
Cellar Door is a journey into the mythology, the mystery, and the beauty of Middle-earth. Sit back,
close your eyes,
and imagine.